we're being joined by Mr. Peter Kuznick from Washington, D.C. He's a professor of history and the director of the Nuclear Studies Institute at the American University. So thank you so much for joining us on World DNA.
Glad to be with you.
Now, sir, of course, we'll soon be entering the final phase of this extended truce deal as well. Can we expect a further extension?
The latest reports coming out of the Middle East suggest that people are optimistic that it will be extended for at least a few more days. Nothing definite yet, nothing concrete, nothing firm, but they're optimistic, and that's a good sign.
Mr. Kuznick, now the U.S. State Secretary will be visiting Israel again this week. U.S. was initially not in favor of a pause in the fight. What do you feel would be U.S. stance now?
The Biden administration is under tremendous pressure inside the United States as well as internationally to back off this firm, unquestioning support for Netanyahu and the Israeli military and to find a different solution. We know that in the United States, 70% of younger voters are opposed to Biden's policy in support of Israel. So that's 70%. We also know that Biden, who's up for re-election next year, is under a lot of pressure from Arab Americans to have a more even-handed policy. So as these images come out hour after hour and day after day of Gaza, the sympathy has shifted from the Israelis, who were horribly victimized on October 7th, increasingly toward the Palestinians and the Gazans who are suffering now under Israel's very aggressive military response.
Right, sir. Also, how do you feel Hamas will exchange Israeli soldiers? What would be the prisoner exchange for each Israeli soldier that's held captive?
That's going to get much more complicated. There are probably another 30 women and children who can be released. After that, they're talking about releasing soldiers. We saw in the past that the Israelis released 1,000 Palestinian prisoners to get one soldier back. So we don't know, but the numbers are going to be much more than the 3-to-1 that are currently being negotiated and that are being actually released in response to the release of the Israelis who are taken hostage. So it's going to get very tricky, gets much more complicated. We also know that Netanyahu and the right wing is pushing Netanyahu to resume the fighting immediately. So there's a lot of pressure, and not to do anything to recognize or to strengthen or bolster the Palestinian Authority, which is the hope for a two-state solution. So the world is calling for a two-state solution. The United States officially is doing so as well. But the United States is also backing an Israeli government that is rejecting that approach completely and giving carte blanche and free rein to the extreme right-wing settlers on the West Bank, who have been attacking and killing Palestinians at frightening numbers. So this is still a long way from any kind of resolution or any permanent ceasefire.
Thank you, Mr. Kuznick, for joining in and sharing all your insights on this. That was Mr. Peter Kuznick joining us from Washington, D.C. right here on World DNA.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.